everyone. It's now 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board meeting for this first day of August 2023. I ask everyone to please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gopal, will you lead us?
Yes, sir, thank you. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. We ask for peace in the warring countries. Bless the sick, the injured, and those who have passed as we pray for an end to the conflicts that exist today. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Lorraine,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Cotrick,
Here.
Krug is present, Kessler,
Here.
Gopal,
Here.
Tucker.
Present.
You have a full board.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I'd also like to note for the record that our township attorney is missing, and standing in for our township attorney, Jack Belzer, is Amanda Doyle. Also, Operations Manager Tom Broker, Zoning Administrator Mike Dean, and Township Assessor Julia Wilson are also present. Additionally, the following township officials are present virtually via Zoom: Township Engineers Alan and Melissa Lawrence. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual meeting?
Yes, to the members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised the meeting is being recorded to be shown on Public Access TV, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, therefore all public comment will be taken near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at fentontownship.org.
All right, thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business of order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I vote yes. Cotrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, moving on to the highlight of today's meeting is next we have a presentation from Genesee County Sheriff Christopher Swanson. Sheriff. One of the first to our new pedestal.
I noticed this. We're front and center. I love this. I do want to compliment, for those that aren't here to see it, it is beautiful, well done. So to the design team, thank you so much. I also come to you as a resident as well. My wife Jamie's here, and we love you part of the Fenton community. So thank you so much. Welcome from Burton. Mr. Supervisor, you've made it clear, and I think it's appropriate with all the contracts that we have as the Sheriff's Office that we go to our clients, which you are, and we give an update, and we also open it up to whatever questions you have. And we've now have, since the then Deputy Gopal's retirement, have added significant contracts to our Sheriff's Office. We now have 16 contracts. We just most recently contracted with Forest Township for a part-time position in connection with Lakeville schools. We also cover 14 other school districts, Hurley Hospital, community mental health, of course, Vienna Township, Atlas Township, downtown Operation Arrowhead, which is 5 full-time employees. I say all that because what happens in Lakeville impacts Fenton Township. And what happens in Fenton Township impacts Vienna Township. Anybody driving through Genesee County will drive up 23, 75, 69. So I look at it a victory or a challenge at anywhere in this county is something that we all have to take in consideration. What we're doing downtown with Operation Arrowhead, and all the visitors are coming downtown, especially for this month of August with Crim and Back to the Bricks and Bikes on Bricks. We just had Gus Macker. My job as the sheriff is to make sure that everybody's protected, everybody's served, and everybody's unified. And so although I am going to highlight Fenton Township stats, I just want you to know that the focus is great success here is to be shared across the county. And that's what we have here. As you know, this contract we've had with Fenton Township is from the 80s. We're going on over 45 years. And it's a contract that allows you to contract with the sheriff's office to provide patrol and investigative services. The call volumes have always gone up because there's more people coming to Fenton Township and there's more industry. You see what's happening on Thompson Road, which I applaud the board for that vision. But with more people, more industry, you know, there's more opportunity for medicals and other types of resources needed. But we have had the same 5 people plus a 60% of a detective work in Fenton Township for well over 15 years. And so, you know, what we were able to do with just that small group, there's not a township this size with this many people with this call volume that can run with a 5-person police department. But yet, when you contract with the sheriff's office, you also get a $32 million operation with it. And that's the benefit of contracting. You have never, as a board, had to worry about who we were going to hire, who had to be disciplined, days off that we needed to switch. In fact, if there's any question of a staff that wasn't a good fit or maybe was too costly and Mr. Broker came and said we need to trim it down, we had 3 or 4 people on deck. And for that, I'm grateful. And it's a great advantage. And that's what we tell those that contract with us. When you look at Fenton Township, it's a big township. You know, it does have literally hundreds of thousands of people coming through every week. Hundreds of thousands, up 23. We have great partnerships with Fenton City, Linden, and Argentine, the state police. But we are responsible as this Fenton City with that US 23 drive and all that comes with it. We are happy to report that as of January 1st this year, we have not had a significant violent crime. We've had no armed robberies. We've had no shootings. We've had no homicides. Other places can't say that. So although we look at our township and sometimes, you know, anybody who's a victim of a crime, you know, it's personal. But when you look at what we're doing in this township, our presence and people looking out for each other, it makes a difference. And I know personally, as I said, as a resident, you know, a safe community, safe schools, it makes me feel comfortable coming to whatever community is. And Fenton's not, you know, the only one, too. We have other great success in our townships across the county, even those that we don't contract with. Somebody says, you know, crime is spiking in different places. Well, we don't see that. We look at what's happening downtown Flint and the businesses, the investment. You know, it's a safe place downtown. Operation Arrowhead has the same philosophy as we do here at Fenton Township. When Deputy Gatika goes to a scene or any of our deputies, we just don't treat symptoms, we solve the problems. And if there's a problem and you take care of that, you don't have to worry about coming back. If there's a domestic dispute or an overdose or if there's a larceny, we're going to find out why that happened. And when you have problem-centered treatment, that's what turns crime around, and that's what reduces recidivism, which is the repeat of that. So things inside the jail with Ignite, you know, there are many Fenton residents that are in the Genesee County Jail. And while they're there, the Ignite program that you may have heard about, you may not think what the connection is to Fenton Township, but 9 out of 10 inmates in the Genesee County Jail, about 610 population a day, they're coming back home. They're not going to prison. They're coming back home. And my job as a sheriff is to return them better than when they left so they don't ever come back. And if they don't come back, it's most likely because they haven't repeated their crime. They've gotten treatment for their addictions. And I know in this crowd and those watched right now, we're all too familiar with those that struggle with addictions. That is 9 out of 10 inmates that are in the jail today. 9 out of 10 people that we arrest in Fenton Township, there is something to do with drugs or alcohol. And if we're able to treat that, then people make better decisions. And so I say all that to say, these numbers that I gave you, they're just stats. But if you feel safe, perception's reality, and that's my mission, is that you have a sense of safety and security, that your investment in this office is worthwhile. And I promise you this, I'm personally overseeing every investment, including Fenton Township, and I make it worthwhile. Since January 1st of this year, those deputies have answered 1,629 911 calls. That's a lot of calls. 1,629. Of those, we have made 23 felony arrests and 76 misdemeanor arrests. Now, these felony arrests could be felony warrants. They could also be active felonies. These are mainly property crime felonies. As I said, that we have a very low incidence of violent crime in Fenton Township. We did 424 traffic stops. Now, there's a philosophy that we have in law enforcement across the board about traffic stops, and every sheriff and chief has their own orders from headquarters, so to speak. Whether it's on the road or on the lake, we look at traffic stops as educational, not punitive. There's times that I forget how fast I'm going, or I didn't do something and I got pulled over, and that's a moment where most people have their only interaction with law enforcement is on a traffic stop. And a lot of how we handle it will depend on how people view law enforcement in their future, should they ever have a contact. So we are very intentional on how we interact with people, and a lot of our people are out-of-towners trying to figure out where the Mueller's Apple Orchard is, or where is the festival downtown Fenton. And when we talk to these people, yeah, they broke the law, they violated a speed, but we keep it educational. So when I tell you of those 424 traffic stops, we issued 75 citations. We don't issue tickets because we have a number to reach. That's just not appropriate. I think those in law would know that. Not only is that not appropriate, it's not legal. There's no quotas that we have. There's no quotas in law enforcement. And we look at, if you have not gotten a lesson from this educational experience, then you will get a ticket. And that's where Jack Belzer comes in, and we try to make sure that it's worth. But I want you to know that our traffic stops are out there not to harass people. They're there to send a message. When you're there, you don't run, or you run a red light, you're going to get stopped. And our deputies are very good at that. We, as a organization, I've been a paramedic, as you know this, for a long time. I just, this August, will renew my paramedic license once again, since I've been a medic in 1992. And we know as medics that they look a lot like police officers, because they are. And so whenever somebody in Fenton Township has a medical emergency, a county road patrol deputy is dispatched along with the county medic. And so we not only have the county medic, and you see that vehicle right out front, assigned here, not as the contract just strategically makes sense to be in the south end, but they also respond to police calls. And so you have medics responding to police calls, and your deputies responding to medicals. And since January, our Fenton Township road deputies have responded to 145 medical emergencies. Many times they're the first ones there. An asthma attack, a heart attack, maybe somebody had a falling out, maybe they just can't get up. They just want to see somebody there to help. And our relationship with Fenton Township Fire and Chief Voles and Fenton City, specific to the township, it's phenomenal. They don't respond to every medical, the protocol that they have, but nobody is going to get there faster than us. Our response time to law enforcement and medical calls is less than 6 minutes. That's phenomenal, but not as good as Operation Arrowhead. That's 4 minutes, 20 seconds, but that's a whole other topic. When it used to take hours. 51,431 miles traveled by your 5 township deputies since January. 51,000 miles. Because a lot of crimes can be averted just by presence and slowing people down. And you'll see the speed trailer that's right up on Linden Road, just south of Linden. That's a trailer that reminds us all to slow down at curves, and we put it strategically. Thanks to our reserve deputies that are dispatched out of Vienna Township. We move that trailer every week to 10 days, sometimes 2 weeks, to different places. Fenton Township gets it, Atlas gets it, Vienna gets it, but it's a reminder. The Marine Division. We do partner with Lapeer County and our parks with Holloway, but 99% of our time is here in Fenton Township. We work with Argentine, but definitely Lake Fenton, of which I'll be swimming on that lake in about 35 minutes for training. It's safe enough for me to do Ironman swim training in the middle of Lake Fenton, and I did it again on Saturday. When you look at what's happened, people pay a ton of money to be on the lake. They get all excited on a Thursday to go to the public access and drop their boats in there. And you'd be shocked to know that we only have 5 people on the Marine Division this year. 3 deputies that are college students. One gentleman named Steve Grunwald, who is the morning show host at 99.5 out of Detroit, Detroit's #1 country music station, Steve Grunwald. And then we have Sergeant Mangrum, who's literally a full-time sergeant in the jail that I have invested in taking him out of the jail and putting him in the Marine Division because it's that important. When you look at what it costs, Fenton Township gets a lot of service on the lakes, and the only money I get is $24,000 and some change. That's it. And you can't run that with 4 deputies and a sergeant. So I just want you to know that you get a lot more than what you pay for, especially when we're patrolling Lobdell, Panema, of course Lake Fenton, Silver Lake, and these kinds of things. And we have not had an incident on the lake this year. We're very thankful for that. You know, we have one more big holiday to get through, and then we're on the downswing. But our Marine Division has done well. They're very well trained. Those senior deputies, they also oversee the dive team, which is a volunteer team of our sheriff's deputies as well as citizens. We did have one drowning, but it was a save. And you may have seen the story that happened right off of Fenton Road at Pheasant Run. It was a Fenton City call, but, you know, there were Fenton Township assets that were there. And 2 little boys saved another little boy, pulled him out of the water. And I encourage everybody here to know CPR and to know it well, because that's really what saved his quick response. They pulled him out of the water, and the mom did compressions and saved that little guy. I'm excited to say that we've also had no major crashes. We've not had to dispatch our accident team to do any measurements, and we're hoping to continue that through. On the business side of it, you know, we have a contract negotiations coming up. You know, at the end of this September 30th is our new calendar, or new fiscal year. We try to keep everybody on the same, you know, pattern. We've got 5 new board members at the county. That one repeat came back after a little bit of a sabbatical. So some people have no idea about Fenton Township except for Commissioner Shoemaker, who is an advocate for not only law enforcement but for this township. You know, this is where he cut his teeth in politics, and I will tell you that he's carrying the torch and representing you well on the county commission. Questions?
Sheriff, I certainly speak for myself, but I'm sure I can speak for the board. I truly appreciate you coming in person to do these reports.
Thank you.
There's nobody that could do them better.
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Any questions for the sheriff? Any comments from the board?
Let's ask you a question.
Anything. You can, there's nothing I won't answer.
Nothing?
To a fault. Yes.
Nothing? Well, the report was amazing.
Thank you.
Sheriff, thank you very much, and good luck swimming tonight.
Yes.
I'm sure you brought Jamie with you to
She'll be
ride
on the
alongside.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't say
absolutely.
swim. I don't swim stupid. I do swim with a big pontoon next to me.
Next
right?
to you,
That's
absolutely.
right.
I hope so.
That's true. Thank you so much. I
All right.
appreciate your
Have
trust.
a good night, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to the next business order is the meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes of the July 18th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or revisions to these meeting minutes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to the next business order is expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices?
I had a question about the RS, no, it's not RS engineering, there's 2 of them. We hired engineers that I was not aware of, SME. They do engineering. What were they doing, and did I know about it?
SME,
It says
Tupper Lake Sewer
Tupper Lake Sewer Project.
Project. Oh, they did some soil borings for the.
Oh, they're the
yeah.
soil borings?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. That I knew about. They were in my backyard.
I was gonna say, isn't that for the Tucker project?
Yeah, Tucker Project, it's misnamed in the report.
There you go.
I had a question as well. I noticed going through here on some of the payment refunds from the building department, that some of them say the application fee says non-refundable and some do not, but it seems like we're refunding them. Like for instance, under Halligan, it says application fee in parentheses, it says non-refundable, but we're clearly refunding, you know, $75. Maybe that's a portion of the fee.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, it looks like we refunded 155 out of 350, it looks like.
Okay, so that just must be, you know, I noticed on some of them it doesn't have that parenthetical after it, and some do. So,
Yeah,
I guess maybe that's just coding in the system.
Yeah, it's probably just a, I mean, I don't know the specific instance here, but if they have extra inspections where we have to withhold part of their deposit, then they don't get the full 350 back.
Okay. Thank you.
This does
Just
appear
wanted
to
to
be-
understand.
This appears to be an electrical inspection too, Tom. That might be,
Oh,
it might be new.
That would explain why I was refunded. We're not doing electrical stuff.
not
So
yet.
if it was a non-refundable, typically a non-refundable fee, or have some issues with the state taking over the trades, so we refunded all the permits that have been submitted.
Okay.
So that would be why, in that specific case.
Any other questions regarding the expenditures? All right, hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $919,703.73 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Reed,
Yes.
Gobel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Contract,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, expenditures stand approved as presented. Moving on to public hearings, none. All right, next is reports. First, we have APM mosquito control mid-year report. Do we have anybody here from APM? No.
Does not look like it.
I don't see anybody. Well, we've all reviewed the report in our packets. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'm not sure if you'll know, I was thinking they'd be here, so I was gonna ask this, but I'll just ask it anyway. Do we know if there were, I know it said there were no negative tests in Fenton Township. Did they say anything about whether there being any positive tests anywhere else in the area that they treat?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
Not heard
They
of
did
any.
not, yeah, we didn't
Alright.
hear of anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to our second report. We have a planning and zoning report for July 2023. Zoning Administrator Mike Dean will give that report.
Yeah, so it's just a short summary of what we were doing in the month of July. The regular zoning board meeting was canceled, but we did have a special meeting for one variance over in Fenton Orchards. We the Planning Commission granted final site plan approval for the Ruffy Ranch Doggy Daycare at the corner of Thompson and Fenton Road. The Planning Commission has been talking about a little thing called short-term rentals. So we had further discussion on that. And then we had the master plan open house on the 27th. So that is what has been going on with planning and zoning for the past month.
Are there any questions or comments from the board for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
So I
Oh,
am
all right.
going to change the script on you.
All right, no problem.
The next topic here is the code enforcement report. I would like to provide you guys with a brief update on the Mueller's farm. We had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Mueller and go over what actions they're taking over there. So they have an approved list of DJs, which in and of itself is good. What's causing some issues is that when they implemented that, they had a lot of existing contracts, right? Because they had booked basically through 2023. So some of the issues that have been happening lately, right, that you've heard with the residents are from the DJs that are not on that list. Moving forward, they are just about done with those pre-existing contracts, and they'll only have their approved DJs going forward. They have instituted a no subwoofer for a requirement for all DJs, and they are enforcing that. One thing we talked about that they will be doing and sending us the information is that they will be taking decibel readings every hour after 8 p.m. and they will be emailing those to us monthly. So we will be able to determine and track what the impact of the sound that they're having for their events.
At the property line?
Yes,
Who's taking the ratings?
they are. And they'll be taking pictures, time-stamped, so we'll know.
There you go. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then we will get copies of those.
Excellent.
They're also, in the spring, going to be planting trees along Linden Road, and they're going to also relocate the driveway to straighten it from where it is right now, but as part of that, they'll be planting trees. And they also have said that they're not going to be rotating crops along Linden Road, so the corn will be growing there to act as a buffer. So these are the actions that they're taking. I think the best outcome out of this is that we're going to get the decibel reading data with the pictures and time stamped. And that will allow us to keep track of what's going on and make an informed decision on additional improvements that need to be made.
Any questions for Mike regarding Mueller Orchards? He had a meeting with him this morning at, it was 11, correct? And the meeting, Mike came in and gave me a report afterwards. I decided to stay out of the meeting. It was just Mike and Pat, and so gave you a summary of what happened, so I'm happy.
Look, I mean, our goal is always compliance, right? And so we are in a process of gathering data to make sure they're in compliance, and if they're not, we'll escalate it as necessary.
And your recommendation is not to take it to the planning commission at this point, correct?
At this point, I think what will be most important is getting the decibel information, right?
Yep.
Because we've not received any complaints outside of what you guys have heard this year, right? You had the one couple that was here twice. We've not had any other complaints made to the office through code enforcement. So in order for us to adequately make informed decisions, having that data, I think is important before we start going off and doing X, Y, and Z. So we can identify a baseline, identify what the real issue is, and then go forward after that.
Would you contact them and get a date, a list of dates on which non-approved disc jockeys will be playing through the balance of the ones they have signed?
Sure.
Because I think I might try and track down our decibel meter and pop on over there.
I will get you that information.
We have one.
You
Should
can-
we
We did.
contact the folks that have been coming in, give them a breakdown of what we're doing,
Yes.
so that they don't think we've,
Yeah. Question is when we do it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think clearly we gotta do it.
I have their address. I can send a letter.
I was gonna say, why don't we
I
do
don't
it via
have-
mail, so it's in writing? Because I know that the last time, John, you did make a comment that maybe we should bring them back. So maybe that was their expectation, and let them know that, you know, at this time, that's not gonna happen. It just, we think that what's been put in place is adequate at this time, and it will
Well,
need to be monitored.
I think what's more, we're in our informational gathering, right?
Yeah.
Having the decibel readings will be,
Yes,
You
what I
know,
was gonna ask is, could we get the decibel readings once we have those sent to them too? So they can verify against their own?
They could FOIA them.
Okay.
I don't know if we'd wanna just send them, but I wouldn't probably wanna
Or,
send them, but they
or we
certainly
could
could
ask,
FOIA them.
or we could ask the Muellers if they wanna send them.
Yeah,
well, we can definitely make them available at the office, right?
Yeah.
It's public information.
Okay.
You can actually download an app onto your phone that's a decibel meter.
I was gonna say.
I mean, they
And
they
they're
could do
really
that
accurate.
on their own.
Really?
Oh, right, I
Yes.
just,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I did some
Very
research on that. It depends on your phone. You know, apparently the iPhones are more reliable than the Androids.
I was just gonna say.
I have one of those.
I wouldn't take it as gospel,
Sure.
but at least it gives you an idea of the range.
well, yeah, and if they take theirs and it doesn't match up with what we're getting from,
Right.
then, you know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm with Mike on that because, you know, you can always take normally with decibel readers, there's a graph and it's a timed graph. So it's not like you can have a lot of music going, then all of a sudden it's quiet, take a picture of the quiet decibel reading. But there's an actual bar, like you start it in an hour and an hour later, it'll show you the entire hour of decibels. So it's not like
Okay.
Can't just take a photo.
Right,
I
that
mean,
does-
because the family, I mean, you could also run a vacuum
Yeah.
and put their picture.
Yeah, no, that,
So,
I did not realize that. I was thinking when you said on the hour, I was picturing them like, just
yeah.
taking the reading then.
Yeah, I mean,
If it stretches out.
obviously you can manipulate that either way.
Yeah.
Both sides will try to do it to their advantage, but there is a running graph of the entire time of the reading, so that should.
Yeah, it should.
Any other questions for Mike?
That was
Over the decibel limit.
that was supposed to be turned off. New phone.
Thanks, Mike. All right, moving on to the ordinance enforcement second quarter report. I'm sure we've all reviewed that. Does anybody have any questions or comments from the board? All right, we'll move on to the Michigan Community Center Grant Program. Operations Manager Brooke, will you explain?
Yes. The state recently announced the availability of up to $60 million in grant funds for Michigan municipalities and organizations to either expand programming or work on capital projects. It's a fairly tight deadline at the end of this month. Excuse me. Based on the criteria, we may be able to obtain a grant for several improvements here at the township, including a couple the board's already talked about, namely the terraced structures on the lake side of the property, the balcony renovation, but also solar panels to generate electricity on the roof of the building, and the installation of a permanent generator for this building to provide backup power for both levels and allow us to serve as a emergency shelter in case of storms. So we're still working on the cost estimates, so we don't have a hard number yet, but I wanted to at least give the board a heads up that we'll likely be bringing a resolution to the next meeting to not only authorize submission of the application, but also to commit some matching funds, which should improve our odds of getting funded for the projects. And in all likelihood, the amount of matching funds would be similar to or maybe less than what we've already approved for the Lakeside Terrace project.
I was just gonna say, we've already
Yeah.
budgeted
So by-
some matching funds.
By holding off and
Right.
submitting it all together, we may get, 4 for the price of 1, basically. So-
Have we begun anything on the
Yes,
terrace?
I've had the, Alan, Melissa, or Lawrence Engineering came out and looked. We have a sound structure, so really what we have to do is replace the cement, and we're looking into that now. So basically what we're doing is the board has already authorized enough money for the outside, the safety issue that we have outside. So what we did is with this grant, actually Mike and I were on a Zoom meeting with the grant writers today going over all of it. And basically what we're doing is we're looking at solar panels, which would hopefully bring the township to like a net zero, so we would be feeding the grid enough to where we wouldn't have a bill. Also, we are looking at a generator, as Tom said, which would give full backup to the whole building, so we could be a shelter. It would also encompass both the deck and the outside.
And money can be used for project already begun?
We haven't begun those projects.
Oh, we have?
As you can see, no.
Okay.
So what we're hoping is what the board's already approved,
Mhm.
we would be able to get the whole project, all 4 projects done with the money that we already approved.
Great.
Do we know what the timeline will be on the grant process, like on their decision?
We have to submit it on August 31st, and we don't know when we.
I think the approvals are coming in October.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
mid-October, but I didn't want to
And
say.
they want to contract, I know we have to spend the money by the end of '26, which we'll have no trouble with that.
Right.
But
Okay.
the contract, but we have to have a contract with the state. I think it's the end of this year or early next year, if it's awarded.
I'm assuming there was no park money available. It talks about capital improvements, but I assume that.
That's another grant.
That
We're
we're
working on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is for basically community centers.
Okay.
This
So,
center here.
yeah.
I just saw the generic term capital improvement. And since there wasn't any money for parks, I assumed, but
Yeah.
I don't like to make assumptions.
National Resource Trust Fund is the target for that grant, so.
Okay.
And we are
Target
working
away,
on that.
target away. Don't forget about Silver Lake Road either when you're targeting away. We got property over there that I think would make a nice park too. Not to discussion for some other day, just long-term planning.
Well, we have, I think, Mike, we have 8 different areas, 8 or 10 different areas that we're looking for grant money. So, and again, it's over a year period, but as you know, the board authorized grant writers, and Mike and I are working with them all the time. We have bi-weekly Zoom meetings with them, so we're working on different projects all the time, bringing them to you only when we find out when we're about through the process. Any other questions or comments? All right. Are there any other committee reports to be made to the board this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to communications. None. Next business order is adoption of ordinances. This is proposed municipal water ordinance, second reading, vote on adoption. I'm sure we've all reviewed the memo in our packets. Operations Manager Broker, will you please review and explain?
It's the same version the board looked at 2 weeks ago. It includes the minor revision that Mr. Deem had recommended, moving the number from 4 to 3 as far as splits. And then also, due to an issue that Mr. Belzer brought up, we added a phrase in there that makes that Article 6 would apply to platted subdivisions and condominium developments in case it wasn't clear that land subdivided would include that. So other than that, it's the same version we looked at 2 weeks ago, and the county has looked at it and they're fine with it as well.
And Jack commented last meeting, I thought he said he had some questions that were outstanding. Was it on this one, or was that a different one that he was?
I think he did indicate that, but when he called me, that was
That was it?
the only other thing he did mention, which I don't think is an issue right now, and we could revisit it if we need to, is if a developer pays to extend a water line, that they would be in line to recover some of their costs from other tap-ins. But until we have that type of situation, I'm not sure we need that in the ordinance. It'd be more, I think, an individual case basis.
I think it's a good concept, but, I don't know what Jack's circumstances are. Is he gone for long? Is he back in Italy again, or
No,
He'll
he's
be
in
back.
the meeting.
next meeting?
Yes.
I mean, I don't, can we hold on to it till we make sure he's got his issues dealt with?
Well,
has them.
he
Yeah,
said he didn't
signed
think
up.
that was a big issue, and that's the only other one he talked
Okay.
about was the
All right.
condominiums, so I
All right.
think he's fine with
All
it
right.
the way it is.
Cool beans.
You know, just,
Yes.
my attention was drawn back to that section due to the highlighted, portion. So right after that, it talks about permits to improve parcels of land adjacent to existing water means. So what would that, how broad is that? Like, if someone applies for, like, what I guess I'm hoping we don't have is that if someone, like, applies to get, like, a shed or something, or put in solar, that we're not making them, like, attach up to the water line. But if they're, obviously they're putting up a house.
Right, it would only be if it was a structure that would need water.
Okay.
It just, they'd have to use the municipal water.
All
They
right,
wouldn't be
so
allowed
the
to-
permits to improve parcels is not too broad there now. Sorry, this was a little-
Again, it's language cloned from several other ordinances.
Right, I know, but
So I think-
we're kind of trying not to force people onto the water system, whereas I don't know what other areas might be doing.
Well, any new home,
Right, any new home we would want, if it's right along where the water line already is, we'd want them to connect.
Right.
But if they're just improving, they're adding some like shed or something onto their existing home, or like I don't know, they're, building something small, that's not like a full house, I was hoping it wouldn't be, I just was a little worried about that.
I think we'd look at those on a case-by-case basis. I
Okay.
agree, I don't see us forcing.
Well, it's just
No,
that
we
if we have it in here, that it doesn't seem like it would really let us do it on a case-by-case basis, was what I was concerned about. It says we won't give permits.
Give you input on that? You okay with it?
Yeah.
Jack's looked it over. I understand, I understand,
Yeah.
Kate's concern.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
she
think,
I don't think it means what you think, what you're saying it means. I don't think that
So I guess how broad do you think it gets?
if it's available, it wouldn't be available for an improvement. Your water line wouldn't be available if you put up a shed. There'd be
No,
no reason
right,
for its
but so if
availability.
we're having to give
So
a
they would
permit,
require it.
so there's a permit to improve a parcel of land that's been seized, and it's there, and it's like, cause we're gonna have some parcels where the water line's gonna run by, but they're going to have decided not to hook up. And then if those people apply for a permit to do, something that's not like a new house, because if it's a new house, we'd want them to have to connect up. My concern is that if they're applying for something smaller, like, I don't know, we talked about how we have, in our new solar ordinance, we talked about how people could put up solar, so if they apply for a permit to do that, would we then be required by this to say, you're seeking a permit, we have to deny that permit unless you're hooked up to the water? That's what I was,
No, I don't think that's what this says.
okay, even though it says,
No, I've read it. I agree. I mean, I agree.
but what do you
I
think
see
it
what you're
says, is
reading.
what I'm asking. Cause that's, what permits are we denying if we're not, I guess that's what,
I guess I'm not sure what the question is.
well, so pretty clearly it's saying that we have to deny permits. We're going to deny all permits if they're not hooked up to the water, so all permits to improve parcels of land adjacent to existing water mains or lines. So So that's what I'm,
So you think it means if I'm adding on?
well, I
to
think
my-
it's anytime someone applies for a permit to improve a parcel of land, I'd assume in any way, since we don't limit it at all, that that they would be denied the permit unless they're connected up to the water line.
I don't think that's the intent of the ordinance.
I don't think it's the intent either, that's why I'm saying we shouldn't have it say that if we don't want it to say that.
I don't see an issue with it.
You don't see an issue? Treasurer Tucker?
Good.
Any other questions? All right, I'll now open up the meeting for public comment on the proposed municipal water system ordinance.
That was the first reading. This is second reading.
Oh, we don't need it, that's right, we don't need the second reading, even though there was a change.
It wasn't substantial.
It wasn't substantial enough to do that? All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, okay, I need a motion to adopt the municipal water system ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Patrick,
No.
Kessler,
Yes.
I vote yes, Gopel,
No.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
motion passes.
Tom, if you want to make a record of that, or a note of that, we can talk to it.
Well,
Jack's been through it already.
I know the planning
Tree
commission is
lawyers
going to
do.
be working on a urban service boundary, which means this ordinance will need to be amended in the not too distant future. So that would give us an opportunity to revisit that language as well.
Just make a note of it.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Okay,
check
we'll make a
about
note
it.
of that,
Yeah.
and then, like he said, we're gonna have to revisit this ordinance
Yeah, that's fine.
soon anyway,
Right.
and we'll make sure to bring up your comment. All right. Next, under adoption of ordinance is proposed grading ordinance amendment introduction, and this is the first reading. I'm sure we've reviewed the memo in the packet. Zoning Administrator Dean, can you provide additional information?
At the beginning of the year, the township was audited by Eagle. That's just part of their normal review of ordinances and whatnot. One of the things that was noted was our grading ordinance currently requires a foundation certificate. You know, what that means is prior to backfill, or after the foundation and before the backfill inspection, we are supposed to get a written certification from a licensed surveyor certifying the foundation itself. We have not been doing that, and we had discussions about beginning to do that because it's in our ordinance. And shockingly, the builders were not necessarily on board with that. So we held,
Surveyors, on the other hand.
right. So we had a lot of internal discussion, right? And then we met with the builders. And essentially what we have developed is, as opposed to a foundation certificate, requiring a staking survey. So having them go out and stake where the foundation is going to go, and then the township can note that it's in the correct location based on the approved grading plan. One thing is also important to note, right? The foundation certificate really hasn't been used because we require as-builts at the end. And what an as-built does is it tells us exactly where the building was built. One of the benefits of having the staking or certification done at the beginning of the process is that if it's not put in where it was supposed to be put, we have an opportunity to catch that. By going this staking route, right, it provides a faster method for builders to do it while still providing information to the township to quickly identify potential issues. So based on that, it's our recommendation to amend the grading ordinance to require the staking survey. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have regarding it.
Do we have a lot of misstaked areas?
No,
Okay.
we don't.
Okay.
I think that there is a concern about the lake lots, right, with how small they are. And then there is times when due to field conditions, some things have to change where they're still within their building envelope, but it's not 100% with what the plan was. And so it'd be nice to be able to identify those up front so that we can get the appropriate plans to assessing, and we have an appropriate record of what's going on, so we don't get to the end like, where did this come from?
How much does it usually cost them to have a surveyor come out and do that?
So the foundation certificate, or?
Yeah, well, how much additional cost do we think there'd be?
So it's essentially a couple thousand versus 500 to do the staking. They have to typically, they're out there staking anyway.
Right.
Right, 'cause
they have to know where to put it.
Right.
So.
So now it's just a little bit more detailed than what they would typically do. But it's in line with their current practices.
Any other comments? And again, just to elaborate on what Mike said, is, I think it's been, well, don't really want to say, but it's been a while since, 15 years since we've enforced it. So what happened was we found out, started to enforce it, started getting some feedback about the extra cost. So I want to commend Mike. We put together a meeting with a lot of builders, local builders, and then we brought in Melissa Lawrence from Lawrence Engineering to kind of talk about what we came up with. They agreed, they're on board, so the process seems to work on both sides for both the builders and what we need to make sure that in the township, new homes, new dwellings are being built in the right spot.
You know, I think it's also important to note, right, these are living documents, right? We can go through and, you know, put in the ordinance what's actually happening and improve ways that, you know, are cost effective. May not be the best way, right? And as we go through this, we may realize, you know, this isn't the right thing to do. But I think based on the discussions we've had, it's a step in the right direction, and we should try it out.
And it also saves our residents and people that are investing in our township money.
It'd be a big problem if we catch those things later too, so.
Right.
Makes sense.
But, you know,
Yeah.
to do a survey, the cost of doing that,
Right,
you know, upfront,
yeah.
where
Yeah,
they're
it's better
doing
to catch it
staking
up front,
anyway.
that's what I was.
It should also be noted that only 2 communities in the county do it, so it's not a standard practice either.
All right, any other questions?
So I have one question. In the current foundation certificate language, it talks about failure to comply. But then we changed to the staking survey and there's no language with regard to failure to comply. Is that somewhere else in the ordinance? What recourse do we have if they just don't do it?
Well, probably the smart thing would be to keep the sentence in there. So.
Maybe not a bad idea.
Good catch, Christine.
Was Mr. Lawrence trying to say something? I thought I heard.
I thought I did too, but I looked up and it was still muted, so I don't know. Alan, were you trying to talk?
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you at first. The survey for staking out on a site is great up front, and you can have that certificate, but there's also a 2-foot overdig, which means the stakes are going to disappear before it even happens. Now the question is, we either stay with the foundation certificate or we just get rid of it. Because behind all this, we still have an as-built that happens. That tells us exactly where it is. Now, in doing that, the board has to decide, are we going to follow up if they cheated?
Any questions for Alan? Mike, is your recommendation, what we're gonna do is put the language back in,
Yeah, re-add that last sentence.
add the last sentence?
Yep.
Does that last sentence,
So it
Is there
says
a
failure
fine
to comply
attached
with
to it?
this, I'm sorry,
is there a fine attached to it?
I don't know if I have the full, I don't have the full grading orders. There's a section in the grading ordinance itself, right, that talks about enforcement and fines.
Any other questions or comments for Mike? All right. I will now open up the meeting for public comment on the proposed municipal water system ordinance. Is there anyone here that's here in person that would like to address the board? Yes, sir. Can you come up? If you wouldn't mind just giving us your name.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Pat Priestap. I live on Thompson Road, south side, about a half mile east of Torrey. So our yard is one of the yards that have been torn up. Have any of you been down Thompson Road this last couple of weeks?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So you've seen the puddles, all the water standing still? Like today, have you been by there? Or,
Not
okay.
today.
So it still looks like it was 3 weeks ago when the rain came through, washed out my driveway and 2 driveways to the west of me. Okay. I almost drove in it at 5 in the morning. Took them 4 hours to get me a driveway back so I could go to work. That's lost productivity, lost money for me. So 3 months ago was the first time they started scraping my yard. Okay, so I currently have a 6-inch diameter tubing. It's a flexible like dryer tubing. That's their answer, so my driveway doesn't get washed away again. Okay. Neighbors to the east and west of me still have puddles. Their ditches are filled with water, which is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. If you've been in your backyard, they probably came from Thompson Road. Maybe not. So I just drove down here on the way. There are 10 culverts sitting in front of the trailer park. Why are they sitting there, and why aren't they underneath our driveways? Okay. What's the recovery plan to alleviate the standing water? That's the first one. And more importantly, when am I going to get a culvert underneath my driveway? And ultimately, what's the timetable that they're telling you, us, that I will have grass back on the front of my yard? And I've got some really concerns because I'm across from pump station 12. So I've got a culvert that runs underneath on my east side of my property line that goes underneath Thompson Road. So I've got water coming from the west and the east. And we've had floods 3 times. And I'm really concerned that the engineering crew, they must have cut costs not to put culverts back in after they took our original culverts out. They just stacked up some dirt and some rock. They patted it down with the back of their backhoe. They didn't roll it. So that's why 3 weeks ago, our whole driveway got washed out where they came through the first time. About 6 feet wide, 3 feet deep. So I've got some concerns about this engineering crew that we all hired, that you all hired, that what are you doing now? I'm just washed out right now. But my neighbors to the east and west of me have these huge puddles, huge ditches filled with water. And that's my concern with that, and just the fact that what's the new timetable. Because I know they say originally they got pushed back. I talked with one of the guys when they started this project. They said, oh, we got pushed back in springtime because of all the rain. But they've had a lot of time to catch up. And right now I see like no progress. Right now everything's in front of Thompson Glass. Right now they keep moving west towards the highway, but when are they going to come back and finish ours? That's my question.
Well, Pat, I appreciate it. First of all, it is a Fenton Township water project, but the county is in control of that. But I talked to Melissa, I think it was probably about 6:30 that morning. I got a call from Melissa telling me that there was 3 properties that had been washed out on Thompson Road after we received, I think Melissa told me 4.5 inches of rain, which would have been hard to deal with. I went over there, I took pictures, so I do understand what you're going through. But I'm not really in a position, but our engineers are, that could probably answer all of those questions as far as the engineering. Again, the engineering is not the township. The township didn't hire them. It went through a bid process through the county. It is the county project. But our engineers are on top of it, so I will reach out to Melissa or Alan, and if you don't mind, I'll have them answer your questions.
And I will tell you that, I don't know the answer either, but when they were coming down Fenton Road, the larger culverts went in quite late, well after the pipe had gone through. And they're just recently doing the landscaping finishes along Fenton Road. So I don't know how or why, but it was slow coming down Fenton Road to get the galvanized pipe in the ground.
Just so you know, our engineer, Melissa, Lawrence Engineering, Melissa was on the site probably by 7 a.m. and I got a call back from her, I think it was about 6:30, I don't know, I can let her talk, but by 7:30, she told me she had made the phone calls and they were on site to fix everybody's driveway. So within an hour, our engineers had. So we are doing the best we can, but again, it's a county job and they contracted with the company, but we are on it. And Melissa, are you there with Alan?
Thank you.
Yes.
No problem. Can you answer Pat's questions? Because I certainly am not an engineer, so.
Yeah, so as far as the schedule, they're working on the water main and the restoration happens behind that. What the restoration schedule is for all of Thompson Road, I don't know. All the culverts will go back in. They're not gonna function on those little things that are there now. And all the restoration will happen as well as seeding, all that stuff. I don't know exactly what the dates are on it.
August.
August, September. And if I could get Mr. Estep's address, maybe, or phone number, or perhaps he could call us. I know I can get the county out there as soon. I had another question come in today, and the county got there today. So I know they are very responsive, and I know it's a lot to live with out there, but.
If he will give us his phone number or call us, and then we can follow up with the county.
Pat, you want to just hold off and give me your number, and then,
Yeah.
or just give it to them right now?
Okay, my phone number is 248-935-7469. And the property is 2373 West Thompson.
Mr. Estep, correct?
Pre-step with a P, pre-step.
Estep, okay. All right, got it. I will call you tomorrow and talk to the county as well.
Thank you.
Pat, thank you. We know it's an issue, and I know that Lawrence Engineering has been on it. Melissa, I have one question. Why would they wait for restoration to put a culvert in when they've got a pretty deep hole, knowing that they put the driveway in with even a temporary culvert, knowing that if you got 2 inches of rain, you're gonna lose the driveways? That to me.
Well, they're on a time limit right now, and they're trying to make that time limit. And in doing so, they're going to go forward with the main project, which is to put in the water, and then come back and do the restoration. That's standard practice across the board.
Contract deadline.
Yeah, but a culvert doesn't seem like it's restoration to me. That seems like it could be.
I don't know enough about it, but it seems to me I'd put the culvert in
Pat,
too, but.
You've heard from the experts, and I guarantee you I will talk to them, but they really have done a great job for this township, staying on top of it, so.
They were on it right away. Unfortunately.
Pat Raisin right now and tell him about this.
What do you think?
He's gonna call Matt right now and give him the address. So the county's gonna hear about this right now.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Pat, I apologize for the township. With a big project like, a $30 million project, we're gonna have a few issues, but sorry you're in the middle of it, but it will get done and it'll be done right. And if you have any further problems, they have your number, and I'm sure you'll get theirs. All right, or you can get mine. All right, that was really not about the public comment on the ordinance, but no, that's all right. But that's all right. Is there anybody else here in the audience that would like to talk regarding the the grading ordinance introduction for the first read? Hearing none, is there anybody that has joined us via Zoom that would like to address the board? All right. Hearing none, I will now close the public comment. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, the second reading and vote on the adoption of the proposed ordinance will be conducted at our August 15th meeting.
I think we need to rename it the Surveyor Full Employment Ordinance, though.
Okay.
All right. Moving
Was
on.
that a motion?
No.
Oh.
We'd be a smart alecky.
All right, moving on, the next order of business is unfinished business, we have none. Moving on to new business, this is proposed local road project, Hogan Road limestone resurfacing. Operations Manager Brokaw, will you review?
Yes, the road commission asked the township to look at one more limestone project for this year. That's Hogan Road from Ralston to the bridge that's being replaced. It's an area that hasn't had much work for a long time, so it's really overdue. And with the bridge being closed, it's a good time for them to get in and do some work. So the estimated cost is about $46,000 and change, or 47 and change. And it was not on our original list, but I think we can squeeze it in. We'll probably need to amend the budget a little bit, but I think it's a road that needs it. It's an area that's been asking for fixes for a long time, and I would recommend that we go ahead and approve it, and we can amend the budget next time around if need be. Although some of the projects, excuse me, typically the projects, some come in under budget, we may not need to amend it as much, but it's a project worth doing, I guess is the bottom line.
All right, thanks, Tom. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
How many times have you heard from residents complaints about why didn't they do this when?
Yeah.
So, being proactive on that, I think, is smart. We need to encourage that kind of stuff.
And I've had calls. All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, okay, I need a motion to approve the GCRC cost proposal for limestone resurfacing of Hogan Road from Ralston Road to the bridge over the Shiawassee River as presented.
So moved.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Contract.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. Next under new business is resolution number 2023-22, street light installation, Torrey Road at Julianne Court. Operations Manager Broker.
Yes, the township was approached by a couple of residents in the Old Mill Farms condominium, asking if we'd consider putting a light at the intersection at Torrey Road and Julianne Court, just for safety purposes. Traditionally, when we get those requests, the township has paid to put a light in at the intersection. If they want lights in the subdivision, then obviously it's a special assessment situation, but typically we do put these in. We did get a cost estimate, excuse me, from Consumers Energy, $1,262 to install the light, and it would just be added to our contract. The approval's in the form of a resolution that authorizes the agreement and authorizing the supervisor and clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the township, and I would recommend that we do that for that subdivision.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none. Okay, resolution 2023-22. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
It deems it advisable to authorize Consumers Energy to make changes to existing street light contract to add a street light at the intersection of Torrey Road and Julianne Court, and authorize the supervisor and clerk to execute the authorization for change on behalf of the township. I'll move the resolution.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Krukow, yes. Lorraine.
Yes.
Contract.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is resolution number 2023-23, DWRF financing municipal water systems phase 2 and phase 3. Operations Broker, will you review?
Yes, you'll remember the Township Board recently approved an Act 342 financing contract with the county for phase 2 and phase 3 of the water project. And that funding is coming through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, or DWSRF, which is administered by Eagle. So part of the documentation, the county has requested a resolution from the township that acknowledges the township's obligation to pay a share of that debt, including the possibility that general fund may be required to help with those payments, especially in the early years. For new systems, it's not unusual for system-generated revenues to fall short of debt service requirements in the first few years. And those shortfalls are typically made up in subsequent years as more users connect to the system. So in the event the general fund support is needed, it would be in the form of an inter-fund loan, which would be repaid when the water fund cash flows are sufficient to do so. So it's not saying we definitely will need to do that, but the county is requiring us to acknowledge that possibility in the form of a resolution.
Thanks, Tom.
Is there any rough estimate of what that would cost?
Right now, if we had the full, if we have to absorb the full 5.9 million, the annual debt service on that's about $350,000. So if we get grants, that'll reduce that, and it'd be minus any actual revenues we get. Our preliminary numbers are we may not need anything, but it's too early to say for sure.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, resolution number 2023-23. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, it acknowledges that the township is taking on debt from the Michigan Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, acknowledges that the township's obligation to pay the annual debt service on the funding, including the use of general fund monies if necessary. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I vote yes, resolution passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is proposed Metro Act right-of-way permit extension, AT&T Michigan. Manager Broker, will you review?
Yes, this is a every 5-year renewal. AT&T Michigan has requested another 5-year extension of their existing Metro Act right-of-way permit. They got their first permit in 2003 when the Metro Act was put into law. And it requires telecommunication providers to obtain a permit from local units of government for operating within the public right-of-way. So they pay a fee based on the linear footage of their facilities. The state of Michigan collects the fees and distributes them to local units of government. We received about 9,400 in total Metro Act fees last year. So it's not a huge revenue generator, but it certainly helps. And AT&T has requested and received their 5-year extensions in 2008, 2013, and 2018. And I would recommend we approve this new one, which would expire at the end of 2028.
Thanks, Tom. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I need a motion to approve the Metro Act right-of-way permit extension for AT&T Michigan as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Lorraine,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Krug votes yes, Reed,
Yes.
pardon me, motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next business order is board comment. Is there anyone on the board that has additional comments or concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next business order, which is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. I will now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item? All right, hearing none, I will move on to Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom? We've got a couple people that are on Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items. If so, please unmute.
Mr. McKeon says no.
Mr.
Alan, did you?
Yes.
Alan,
Mr. Supervisor?
Hey, Alan, you've got some feedback tonight that you don't usually have. Is your hookup on your end any different than what you usually have? Trying to decide.
No, not at all. I think you just don't want to hear from me.
Yeah.
That's,
I think the TV is usually turned off and it just comes to the speaker.
Okay.
oh, so the TV's got its sound on?
Okay, that's it. Let's That's not the right one, Mark.
Alan, did you want to address the board?
Good try.
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what that feedback was. All I wanted to let you know was we have made contact with, the engineers at the county already, and they will be out tomorrow to check it. For that driveway, I'm sorry.
Well, Pat has left us this evening, but I'm sure he'll be glad. Again, want to thank both you and Melissa, because like I said, you guys were on top of it early that morning. I know, like I said, I don't know the exact time, but I know it was about 6:30 in the morning that I got my first call from Melissa telling me that there was an issue, and I think by 7:30 there were crews on it, so I really appreciate that. All right, is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items?
They both chatted now.
Oh, they both chatted now?
Okay.
All right, it's now 7:41 PM. If there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting's adjourned.
Now, we're